March 6, 1944. 25,000 feet above northern Germany, the sky is a hard, metallic blue. Second Lieutenant Jack Mercer grips the yoke of his B-17 Flying Fortress. The aircraft shudders as black, flak bursts bloom around the formation, like poison flowers. He tastes metal in his mouth, oxygen mask tight, eyes scanning. Below him somewhere beyond the clouds lies Berlin. This is the first American daylight raid on the capital, the largest yet. Hundreds of bombers from the 8th Air Force, pushing deep into the Reich. No turning back. Flak at 12 o'clock high. The bombardier shouts. The aircraft jolts violently. A concussion slams through the fuselage. The interphone crackles. Hydraulic pressure warning. Number 3 engine coughing smoke. Jack keeps his voice steady. Hold formation. Formation is survival. Alone means death. German fighters rise to meet them sleek Messerschmitt. Bf-109s slicing through the thin air. They come head-on, cannons flashing. One bomber to Jack's left explodes in a silent orange blossom, wings folding like paper. The waist gunner screams into the mic. They're lining up again. Tracers rip past the cockpit glass. The nose art Miss Georgia Bell is peppered with shrapnel. The radio goes dead. Electrical smoke curls under the panel. Then it hits. A direct flak bursts beneath the belly. The bomber lurches downward. Controls go soft in Jack's hands. He fights the yoke, but the aircraft is no longer responding cleanly. The right wing is torn. Fuel leaks in a silver stream. Prepare to bail out, he orders. No panic, just procedure. He feels it now, the cold certainty that the fortress is no longer invincible. The bombardier drops through the nose hatch. The top turret gunner hesitates only a second before disappearing into the sky. One by one they go. Jack stays last. Smoke fills the cockpit. Flames lick back from the wing root. He pulls off his gloves and feels the tremor in his fingers. 23 years old. Indiana farm boy. He never imagined the sky would look so beautiful while trying to kill him. He swings his legs over the side hatch. The wind tears at him. For a moment, he sees the vast formation still pressing toward Berlin. Steady and relentless. War moving forward without him. Then he jumps. The silence is immediate. No engines. No flak. Just wind. His parachute snaps open with bone-rattling force. Above him, Miss Georgia Bell rolls onto her back, trailing fire, and begins her long fall toward German soil. Below, fields and forests of the Reich rise slowly to meet him, and somewhere down there, men with rifles are already watching. The wind howls in Jack Mercer's ears as he drifts downward. The ground rises slowly now, patchwork fields, thin forest lines, narrow dirt roads cutting through northern Germany. He searches for landmarks through the haze. No map, no radio, just instinct. He remembers the briefing at dawn in England. Escape and evasion procedures. Head west. Avoid towns. Trust no one. A rifle shot cracks from below. The round snaps past his boots. So they've seen him? He twists in the harness, trying to drift toward a wooded area beyond a frozen field. More shots echo. Farmers, home guard, regular army. It doesn't matter. On the ground, everyone is the enemy. His boots hit hard. He collapses into wet soil, dragging the chute down with him. For a second he lies still, stunned. The air smells of manure and cold earth. Then he's moving. He tears off the parachute harness, pulls out his escape kit, tiny silk map, a few Reichsmarks, a compass sewn into his jacket. He scans the horizon. No other parachutes in sight. A distant column of smoke marks where Miss Georgia Bell has crashed. Shouts in German carry on the wind. He runs for the tree line. Branches whip at his face as he pushes into the woods. His boots sink into thawing mud. Every breath burns. 25,000 feet to this hunted like an animal. He slows only when the shouting grows faint. For a moment, there is silence. Then he hears engines. Motorcycles. He crouches behind a fallen log. Through bare branches he sees them, two gray-coated soldiers riding Wehrmacht bikes along the edge of the field. Steel helmets. Carabiner 98K rifles slung over shoulders. Calm. Methodical. They're not panicked. They know parachutes drift. They know where to look. Jack presses himself lower. His sidearm, a standard issue Colt .45, feels heavy in his pocket. Useless against two men with rifles and the countryside on their side. One of the soldiers dismounts, points toward the woods. They saw the chute. Jack's heartbeat pounds in his ears. He could fire, maybe take one, but then what? Every road would close. Every village alerted. He waits. Boots crunch through leaves. German voices close in. Higher and Lang, one says quietly, this way. A branch snaps under Jack's weight. Silence. The rifle comes up instantly. Amerikaner. The soldier shouts. Jack stands slowly, hands raised. Mud on his flight suit. Oxygen mask dangling from his neck. No weapon drawn. For a long second, the young German soldier stares at him, almost surprised by how ordinary he looks. Just another boy. The rifle never wavers. Jack lowers his head as cold steel handcuffs snap around his wrists. The war in the sky is over. The war as a prisoner has just begun. In the distance, church bells begin to ring, warning the town that American airmen are on the ground. And somewhere beyond those trees, civilians are gathering. They march him out of the woods with his hands bound behind his back. The motorcycles roll slowly beside them, engines idling low. Jack keeps his eyes forward. No resistance, no words. The Geneva Convention exists on paper but not always in the field. As they approach the village, the church bells are still ringing. Doors open, faces appear. Women in heavy wool coats, old men with armbands of the Volkssturm, teen boys in Hitler Youth uniforms. Their eyes lock onto the American flyer. An enemy, a symbol, a reason their sons don't come home. A woman steps forward from the crowd, her hair tied tight under a scarf. Her face is lined with exhaustion more than age. She points at Jack and shouts something sharp and bitter. Martyr, murderer. Others join in. Jack keeps walking. He sees it in their faces, fear twisted into hatred. The smoke of bombed cities has reached even here. Hamburg burned, Berlin burning. Somewhere, families like theirs are digging through rubble. To them, he is the sky that falls. A teenage boy lunges forward, trying to strike him. One of the Wehrmacht soldiers shoves the boy back hard. Jennig, enough. The soldier's voice carries authority. This prisoner is army property now. They push Jack toward a stone municipal building near the center square. Its windows are cracked from blast vibrations. Posters of Adolf Hitler hang crooked on the wall. Inside, it smells of damp paper and coal smoke. They sit him in a wooden chair, remove the handcuffs, replace them with rope tied to the backrest. An officer enters minutes later. Clean uniform, iron cross ribbon on his chest, controlled expression. Hauptmann Dieter Keller, he says in careful English. Jack says nothing. You were part of today's raid on Berlin. Not a question. Keller studies him, young, thin, soot-streaked, no older than his own nephew. You understand you are now a prisoner of the German Reich. Jack nods once. Outside, the crowd is still restless. Voices rising. Someone bangs on the door. Keller pauses, listening. They are angry, he says quietly. Their city burns. They want someone to blame. A rock smashes against the window. Glass shatters inward. Jack doesn't flinch. Keller turns to a guard. Remove him. Immediately. The rope is cut. Hands bound again. They move him through a back corridor and out into a waiting truck just as the front doors begin to buckle under civilian fists. As the truck pulls away, Jack looks back. The same woman who called him murderer stands in the square, staring at him, not with rage now, but something harder to read. Grief. Maybe doubt. The truck accelerates down the frozen road toward a larger town, toward interrogation, toward prison camps, toward months or years behind barbed wire. Jack leans his head against the wooden slats of the truck bed. He survived the sky, but on the ground, survival is a different kind of fight. And tonight, he will face men trained not to shoot him, but to break him. The truck drives for hours. Jack counts the turns in his head. Left, right, long straight stretch. He tries to memorize the rhythm of the road, but fatigue dulls everything. Dusk settles over the countryside, swallowing farmhouses and tree lines in gray shadow. They reach a rail yard near Hanover. Floodlights cut through the evening mist. Barbed wire fences stretch in layered rings. Guard towers rise above them, silhouettes against a fading sky. Machine guns mounted, motionless. The truck stops. A sign hangs near the gate. Stalag Luftwaffe. He has heard the name in briefings back in England. A prisoner of war camp for captured Allied airmen, run by the Luftwaffe. Supposedly better than the camps for infantry. Supposedly. They push him down from the truck. Boots hit frozen gravel. A searchlight snaps on, bleaching his face white. Name. Rank. Serial number. A guard barks in German-accented English. Jack answers clearly. Second Lieutenant Jack Mercer. 07-4193. Nothing more. They search him thoroughly. Boots removed. Jacket inspected. Silk escape map confiscated. Compass cut from the lining. Even the small photo of his mother is examined before being tossed back at him. A clerk writes his information into a ledger with mechanical precision. Another prisoner stands nearby in striped undershirt and worn trousers. British accent when he whispers, barely moving his lips. Keep it tight, Yank. They'll try you at first. Jack doesn't look at him, just nods once. They march him past double fences of barbed wire, past long wooden barracks painted dull gray. Snow lingers in dirty patches along the edges. The air smells of coal smoke and boiled cabbage. Inside a processing room, They issue him prisoner clothing blue-gray uniform with KG stamped faintly on the back. Kriegsgefangene, prisoner of war. His dog tags are removed. For the first time since he jumped, he feels stripped of identity. A Luftwaffe officer enters. Polished boots. Controlled posture. You are fortunate, the officer says calmly. You are not in the hands of the SS. Jack meets his eyes. Fortunate. Outside, a distant train whistle echoes. The officer leans closer. You will cooperate during questioning. We will treat you according to international law as long as you behave. Jack says nothing. Silence stretches between them. The officer studies him, then gestures toward the door. Take him to Compound B. The barrack door creaks open. Warm air mixed with sweat and smoke rolls out. Dozens of eyes turn toward him. American, British, Canadian airmen. Thin faces, hard stares. One of them steps forward, hand extended casually. Welcome to the wire, the man says quietly. Name's Harris. You look like you fell out of the sky. Jack forces a faint smile. I did. The door shuts behind him with a heavy thud. Outside the fence, a guard tower spotlight sweeps slowly across the compound. Night falls hard over Stalag Luftwaffe. Inside Barracks 12. The air is thick with smoke from a small iron stove burning low-grade coal. 40 men sleep in triple-tier bunks built from rough timber. Blankets are thin, mattresses stuffed with straw that smells faintly of mildew. Jack lies awake on the middle bunk. Above him, someone coughs steadily. Below, a British pilot mutters in his sleep. The room creaks with shifting weight and restless dreams. Across the aisle, Harris, the American who greeted him, leans back against the wall. They'll call you in soon, Harris says quietly. For what? Routine. They'll ask about your squadron, your base, who flies escort. Same script every time. Jack nods. They ever push harder? Jack asks. Harris holds his gaze for a moment. Not here, not usually. Luftwaffe runs this camp. They prefer information clean, but some fellows get transferred. Interrogation centers in Berlin. That's when things get murky. Berlin, the city they tried to bomb this morning. A whistle shrieks outside. Roll call. The men file out into the frozen yard. Snow crunches under worn boots. Searchlights sweep across rows of prisoners standing shoulder to shoulder. A guard counts, recounts, counts again. Precision matters. Jack studies the perimeter. Double barbed wire fences. Sand-filled anti-escape zones between them. Guard towers every 100 yards. Machine guns mounted. Crews alert despite the late hour. Escape here is not impossible, but it is expensive. After roll call, they return to the barracks. Harris hands Jack a chipped enamel mug filled with thin soup. Eat, he says. Red Cross parcels come when they come. Some weeks better than others. Jack takes a sip. It tastes like boiled cabbage and water. Any word from outside? He asks. Harris shrugs. Rumors. Allies pushing in Italy. Russians coming from the east. And Berlin getting hammered. The barracks door opens suddenly. A German sergeant stands there with a clipboard. Lieutenant Mercer. The room goes still. Jack rises slowly. Harris meets his eyes. Keep it short. Jack steps outside into the cold night air. 2 guards flank him, rifles slung but hands ready. They escort him across the compound, not toward the administration building, but toward a separate structure near the outer fence. No lights in the windows. The door opens. Inside, it smells different. Not coal, not soup. Clean, sterile. A desk, 2 chairs, a single hanging bulb, and a woman sitting behind the desk. Civilian clothes, dark hair pulled tight. Calm eyes that study him with unsettling focus. She speaks flawless English. Good evening, Lieutenant Mercer. Jack freezes. This is not routine. Please, she says softly. Sit. Outside, the wind scrapes snow across the wire. Inside, the interrogation has just changed. The bulb hums softly above them. Jack sits. The woman across the desk does not open a file. She already knows his name. My name is Fräulein Anneliese Weber, she says evenly. I work with the Luftwaffe intelligence section. Her voice is calm, educated. No raised tone. No threats. Outside the small window, barbed wire cuts across the night sky. You flew with the 8th Air Force this morning, she continues. Your target was Berlin. Jack answers automatically. Name, rank, serial number. A faint smile touches her lips. Yes, we all know the rules. She studies him for a long moment, not like an officer examining a prisoner. More like a teacher observing a student. You are 23, she says quietly. From Indiana. Farming family. Jack's jaw tightens. That information was likely in his captured documents. Still, it feels invasive. Your aircraft was a B-17 Flying Fortress. Tail markings identify your group. Silence. She folds her hands. You understand something, Lieutenant. Berlin was hit very hard today. Civilians. Residential districts. Her eyes do not accuse. They measure. Jack feels the weight of it. He thinks of the woman in the village square calling him murderer. War from the sky looks clean inside a bomber. Cockpit. Crosshairs. Coordinates. Release point. On the ground. It bleeds. We bomb military targets, Jack says carefully. Of course, she replies. As do we. A pause. Then she leans slightly forward. Your fighters, did they accompany you all the way to Berlin? There it is. Escort range. Tactical intelligence. Jack holds her gaze. Name, rank, serial number. For the first time, something flickers in her expression. Not anger. Disappointment. She stands and walks slowly to the window. For a second, her silhouette blends with the wire outside. You know, she says softly, my brother was a pilot. Messerschmitt Bf 109. Shot down last year over France. She turns back to him. He followed orders too. The room feels smaller now. This war is decided by information, she says. Not courage. Jack says nothing. Minutes stretch. Finally, she returns to her chair and closes an empty folder. Very well, Lieutenant Mercer. You will return to your compound. No threats. No shouting. Just quiet assessment. As the guards step forward, she adds one final sentence. There will be more raids, and more prisoners. I wonder how long your silence will protect them. Jack is led back into the freezing yard. The searchlight sweeps across his face. Inside the barracks, Harris looks up as he enters. Well, Jack sits on his bunk. She wasn't what I expected, he says quietly. Harris nods slowly. Intelligence, he asks. Jack stares at the floorboards. Yes. Outside, the wind howls through the wire. And somewhere in the darkness, Fräulein Weber is already preparing for their next conversation. Days pass inside Stalag Luftwaffe like slow drops of water carving stone. Roll call, thin soup, smoke, rumors. Jack settles into routine, but routine is only camouflage. Beneath it, tension builds. The men track news the only way prisoners can, through whispers, coded notes hidden in Red Cross parcels, scraps of German newspapers used as stove kindling. The Russians are pushing west. The Americans are bombing deeper. Berlin burns again. Each raid means more captured airmen. Each capture means more interrogations. On the fourth morning since his arrival, Jack's name is called again. This time, no clipboard sergeant. Fräulein Anneliese Weber waits outside the compound gate herself, wrapped in a dark wool coat against the biting wind. The guards exchange a glance but say nothing. She walks beside Jack across the yard, not touching him, not threatening. You are adapting, she says quietly. He doesn't answer. They do not go to the interrogation hut. Instead, she leads him toward the camp. Infirmary building, a low structure near the inner fence. Inside, the smell of disinfectant replaces cool smoke. Several cots hold wounded prisoners, burn injuries, frostbite, broken bones from rough landings. A young American gunner lies unconscious, chest bandaged heavily. His face is pale beneath soot stains. Shot down yesterday, Weber says. Near Hamburg. Jack steps closer despite himself. The gunner can't be more than 19. He was asking for his pilot before he lost consciousness, she adds. Jack's throat tightens. Why show me this? He asks. She studies him carefully. Because you believe this is a simple war, she says. Bomb, capture, endure. Her voice remains calm. But it is not simple. Your commanders send boys like this into flak knowing the losses. Our commanders do the same. She lowers her voice further. If I asked you whether your long-range escorts now reach Berlin consistently, you would refuse. Jack looks at her sharply. There it is again. Information. She continues softly. Yet every additional escort fighter means fewer men in beds like this. The moral trap closes gently. Jack stares at the wounded gunner. He thinks of the B-17 Flying Fortress breaking apart above him, of parachutes drifting alone. He also thinks of the woman in the village square. If escorts reach Berlin fully, bombing intensifies. If bombing intensifies, more civilians die. Silence stretches. I can't help you, Jack says finally. Not defiant, just steady. Weber studies him for a long moment. There is no anger in her eyes, now only calculation. Very well, she says quietly. She steps away from the cot. As they leave the infirmary, a distant rumble echoes across the sky. Low, faint, engines. Both of them instinctively look upward. Another formation approaching Germany. The guards tense. Sirens begin to wail beyond the camp. Weber's expression hardens, not as an interrogator, but as a German citizen. Back to your barracks, she orders. The sirens rise into a full mechanical howl. Jack steps out of the infirmary, just as the first distant explosions roll across the horizon, not inside the camp farther south, but close enough to feel. Searchlights snap on despite the daylight haze. Guards shout orders in clipped German. Prisoners spill from barracks, craning their necks toward the sky. Above the thin cloud layer, the sound grows heavier. 4-engine bombers. Jack knows that rhythm. A formation of B-17 flying fortress, or perhaps B-24s pushing toward another industrial target. The Reich's rail hubs, all plants. Ball-bearing factories, each one an artery of war. Flak bursts begin to pepper the sky, small black puffs expanding like ink in water. Even from inside Stalag Luftwaffe, the war feels immediate. A guard shouts for the prisoners to return indoors, but few move. The bombers appear through the clouds, silver, shapes glinting weakly in filtered sunlight. High, tight formation. Jack feels something twist in his chest. That was him days ago. Up there, the air is thin and cold. Oxygen masks biting into skin. Gunners scanning for fighters. Pilots counting seconds to target release. Down here, he is powerless. A German anti-aircraft battery somewhere beyond the camp opens up fully now. The sky erupts in thicker flak bursts. One bomber wobbles slightly in formation. Weber stands several yards away near the inner gate, coat pulled tight against the wind. She does not look at Jack. She watches the sky like everyone else. Then it happens. A bright flash against one aircraft's wing. Fire blossoms outward. The formation tightens but does not break. The stricken bomber begins to fall behind, trailing smoke. A murmur moves through the prisoners, low, instinctive. Come on, come on. Someone whispers. Fighters appear, tiny dark specks climbing toward the bombers. German interceptors. Possibly Messerschmitt Bf-109s or Focke-Wulfs. Hard to tell at this distance. Tracers flicker faintly even from here. The damaged bomber rolls slightly, then steadies. It does not explode. Instead, something small detaches from beneath it. A single parachute blossoms white against the smoke. Jack exhales slowly. One man survived that hit. Below, the guards watch silently. Above, the air war continues, indifferent to who stands behind barbed wire. Weber finally speaks, almost to herself. They never stop. Jack answers quietly, without looking at her. Neither do you. She turns her head slightly, studying him. The bombers pass overhead now, engine thunder fading slowly eastward. The flak dies down. Silence returns but not peace. Somewhere beyond the horizon, bombs are falling. And somewhere else, another American airman is drifting toward German soil. Inside the camp, prisoners and guards stand together for a brief moment under the same sky. But that moment is fragile, because tomorrow, one side will win ground, and the other will lose something they cannot replace. That evening, the camp feels different. No one says it aloud, but the sound of bombers overhead lingers in every mind, prisoner and guard alike. Inside Barracks 12, Jack sits at the small wooden table near the stove. A crude chessboard is scratched into the surface. Harris moves a piece lazily. They're hitting rail lines hard now, Harris mutters. If they choke transport, camps like this won't be resupplied. Jack studies the board but isn't really seeing it. Or evacuated, he says quietly. The word hangs in the smoky air. Evacuations mean forced marches. Winter roads. Men collapsing in snow. The door creaks open. A young German guard barely older than Jack steps inside. Not the usual sergeant. This one looks nervous. Mercer, he says stiffly. Harris glances up sharply. Jack rises. Outside, night presses against the compound. The wind is sharper now, carrying the distant rumble of artillery, faint, but real. Not bombs. Guns. Eastern Front guns. They walk toward the administrative building again. But this time the atmosphere is strained. Fewer guards on the towers. Radios crackling more often. Inside the interrogation room, Fräulein Anneliese Weber stands by the desk, not seated. A map is pinned to the wall behind her. Germany, front lines marked in red pencil. The red lines are closer than before. You hear it? She asks without greeting. Jack nods once. The Soviets advance faster than expected, she says evenly. Rail lines are compromised. Supplies delayed. She turns to face him fully. If this camp must be relocated, it will happen quickly. Jack says nothing. She steps closer. During relocation, chaos favors the prepared. He studies her carefully now. Why tell me that? A long pause. Because this is no longer simple interrogation. My government is losing, she says quietly. No drama. Just fact. When systems collapse, discipline weakens. Guards panic. Prisoners run. Civilians interfere. Her eyes lock onto his. If that moment comes, survival will not depend on rank or ideology. The weight of her meaning settles in the room. Outside, a truck backfires loudly. Both of them flinch slightly. You could attempt escape, she says. Many would. Would you stop me? Jack asks. She does not answer immediately. I serve the Luftwaffe, she replies carefully. But I also serve reason. Silence. Then footsteps rush down the corridor. A door slams somewhere nearby. Raised voices in German. Weber's composure tightens. A uniformed officer bursts in. They are moving prisoners from the eastern camps, he says urgently in German. Orders may come for full evacuation. Weber nods once. The officer leaves just as quickly. Jack understands now. The war is reaching the wire. If evacuation orders come, thousands of Allied airmen will be marched west through a collapsing Reich. Snow, hunger, desperation. Weber meets his eyes one final time. When the moment arrives, Lieutenant Mercer, she says softly, decide. January 1945. The orders come before dawn. The barracks door slams open, boots stomping across frozen floorboards. Our Raus, evacuiring, evacuation. Inside Stalag Luftwaffe, thousands of Allied airmen rise from their bunks in near silence. No shouting, no panic, just the understanding that the wire is about to move. Jack pulls on his worn prisoner coat. The air bites through the thin fabric. Outside, snow falls in hard, wine-driven sheets. Roll call takes longer than usual. Guards argue in low, tense voices. Trucks idle beyond the gates. The distant thunder of Soviet artillery is no longer fainted as a steady pulse beneath the earth. Harris steps beside Jack. This is it, he mutters. Long walk west. Columns form, 200 men per group. Rifles fixed with bayonets. They march out through the gates that had defined their world for months. The road is ice and packed snow. Boots slip. Breath hangs in white clouds. Jack keeps his head forward, counting paces. Behind them, the camp recedes into gray mist. Ahead, uncertainty. Hours pass. A prisoner collapses by the roadside. Guards shout for him to stand. He tries, fails. Two others lift him between them. Discipline is thinning. The younger guards look exhausted. Some glance nervously eastward. Near dusk, the column halts in a small village square bomb-damaged. Windows shattered. Civilians watch from doorways, hollow-eyed. Jack recognizes the look. The same look from the day he was captured. They are herded into a barn for the night. No heat, no rations distributed yet. Inside the dim structure, men huddle close. Then the barn door opens quietly. Fräulein Anneliese Weber steps inside. No coat insignia now, no escort. Just a wool scarf and tired eyes. The nearest guard hesitates but does not interfere. She walks directly to Jack. For what it is worth, she says softly, the western routes are unstable. Bridges destroyed. Units disorganized. Jack studies her carefully. Why are you here? He asks. Because tomorrow may not resemble today. Outside, artillery flashes flicker faintly on the horizon. She lowers her voice further. There is a crossroads 3 kilometers west. If confusion begins, that is where it will begin. Harris shifts slightly beside Jack, listening. Weber meets Jack's eyes one last time. My brother did not survive his fall, she says quietly. Perhaps someone else can. She turns and leaves before he can respond. The barn door closes. Snow intensifies outside. Jack lies awake long after the guards settle. Crossroads. Chaos. Decision. Before dawn, the column reforms. They march again. As they approach the distant intersection, engine noise erupts unexpectedly from the west fast, aggressive, not German. Armored vehicles burst through morning fog. White stars visible even through snow. American forces. Gunfire erupts instantly. Guards scatter. Prisoners drop to the ground. Confusion explodes exactly where she said it would. Jack looks once toward the retreating German figures.